Picture this. You're walking through the mountains of Bolivia, and suddenly you stumble upon something that shouldn't exist. Massive stone blocks, cut so perfectly they look like they were made by machines. But here's the kicker. They're over 1,000 years old, made by people who supposedly didn't even have metal tools. Welcome to Puma Punku, the place that makes engineers scratch their heads and archaeologists question everything they thought they knew. Today, we're diving deep into one of the world's most mind-bending mysteries. We're talking about stone cuts so precise that modern tools struggle to replicate them, joints so tight you can't slide a piece of paper between them, and engineering so advanced it seems like it came from another world. But before you think this is just another Ancient Aliens video, hold up. We're going to look at the real evidence, the actual measurements, and the jaw-dropping techniques that challenge everything we believe about ancient civilizations. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Puma Punku isn't just another old building. It's a puzzle that could rewrite history. So buckle up, because we're about to explore the impossible. Let's start with the basics, but trust me, even the basics at Puma Punku are anything but basic. Imagine you're trying to cut a piece of wood with a butter knife. Frustrating, right? Now imagine trying to cut granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, with copper tools and stone hammers. That's supposedly what the people at Puma Punku did around 1,000 years ago. But when you look at these stones, something doesn't add up. We're not talking about rough, chipped blocks that look like they were hammered together by cavemen. We're talking about cuts so clean and precise that they look like they were made with laser cutters. Let me paint you a picture. The H blocks at Puma Punku, and yes, they're called that because they literally look like giant stone letter H's, have edges that are straight to within fractions of an inch. We're talking about tolerance levels that would make modern manufacturers jealous. Some of these cuts are so accurate that when you measure them with today's precision instruments, the deviation is less than the thickness of your fingernail. And it gets weirder. These aren't just straight cuts. The builders created complex three-dimensional joints, intricate channels, and perfectly round holes that go straight through solid stone blocks weighing several tons. Some of these holes are so perfectly circular and smooth that they look like they were drilled with modern diamond-tipped bits. But here's where it gets really mind-boggling. The traditional story says these people used copper tools, and copper is soft. It's softer than your average kitchen knife. Yet somehow, they managed to cut andesite and granite with such precision that modern stonemasons using diamond-tipped tools have trouble matching the quality. Dr. Jean-Pierre Protzen, an architect who studied Inca stonework, tried to replicate these cuts using the tools that archaeologists say were available back then. After years of trying, he managed to make some decent cuts, but nothing close to the precision we see at Puma Punku. And he's a modern expert with detailed knowledge of stone cutting techniques. Let's talk numbers for a second. Some of the stone blocks at Puma Punku weigh over 130 tons. That's like 26 elephants stacked on top of each other. And these massive blocks aren't just sitting there. They're cut with millimeter precision and fitted together like pieces of a cosmic jigsaw puzzle. The really crazy part? Many of these blocks show evidence of being cut in ways that would require the stone to be held perfectly still while being worked on. But how do you hold a 130-ton block perfectly still without modern machinery? How do you make cuts that precise without the stone moving even a fraction of an inch? And then there's the polishing. Many surfaces at Puma Punku are polished to a mirror finish. We're talking about a level of smoothness that requires not just skill, but tools capable of incredibly fine work. The surface finish on some blocks is so perfect that when you run your hand over them, they feel like glass. What makes this even more puzzling is that different types of cuts appear on the same blocks. You'll see clean, straight edges next to complex curved cuts, all executed with the same impossible precision. It's like having a Swiss watch made by someone who supposedly only had Stone Age tools. Some researchers have pointed out that the cutting patterns suggest the use of templates or guides, standardized shapes that were repeated across multiple blocks. But creating such precise templates and then using them to guide cuts in solid granite? That requires a level of planning and technical sophistication that doesn't match what we're told about these ancient builders. The evidence is literally carved in stone, and it's telling us a story that doesn't match the official narrative. These aren't the rough, imperfect cuts you'd expect from primitive tools. These are precision cuts that rival modern manufacturing techniques. What do you think? Have you ever seen stonework that defies explanation? Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts on these impossible cuts. And if you're as fascinated by this mystery as we are, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps us bring you more mind-bending content like this. Now that we've talked about the impossible precision of individual stones, Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Because if you think the cuts themselves are impressive, wait until you see how these blocks fit together. We're not just dealing with impressive stonework here. We're looking at engineering that would challenge modern construction teams. And remember, this is supposedly done by people who didn't have wheels, pulleys, or metal tools. Let's start with the basics of how these stones connect. At Puma Punku, blocks don't just sit on top of each other like bricks. They're joined using complex interlocking systems that look like they were designed by aerospace engineers. We're talking about joints that lock together in 3 dimensions, creating connections so tight that you couldn't break them apart even if you wanted to. Picture trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle, but each piece weighs as much as a school bus, and the puzzle is 3-dimensional. That's essentially what the builders of Puma Punku accomplished. Every block has unique cuts that allow it to connect with specific other blocks in very particular ways. But here's the engineering nightmare part. To create these joints, the builders had to know exactly how each block would fit with every other block before they even started cutting. This isn't like building with Lego blocks where every piece is standardized. Each stone at Puma Punku is unique, custom cut to fit with specific other stones. This means they needed incredibly detailed plans. Not just rough sketches, but precise engineering drawings that showed every angle, every measurement, every joint. And then they had to execute these plans with perfect accuracy across hundreds of massive stone blocks. Let me give you a modern comparison. When NASA builds a spacecraft, they use computer-aided design software to model every single component. They run thousands of simulations to make sure everything fits perfectly. They have teams of engineers double and triple checking every measurement. And even with all that technology, they sometimes make mistakes. Yet somehow, over 1,000 years ago, the builders at Puma Punku achieved the same level of precision without computers, without detailed measuring instruments, and supposedly without even metal tools. And it gets more mind-bending when you look at the logistics. These stones weren't cut at the site. The quarries where the andesite was mined are miles away, across difficult terrain. So not only did they have to cut these blocks with impossible precision, they also had to transport them over long distances without damaging the delicate cuts and surfaces. Think about that for a moment. You've just spent months creating a perfectly cut stone block weighing dozens of tons. Now you have to move it several miles over rough terrain, up and down hills, and deliver it to the construction site without chipping a single edge or damaging any of the precision surfaces. How exactly do you do that without modern equipment? But the engineering challenges don't stop there. When you look at how these blocks are arranged, you start to see patterns that suggest a level of mathematical understanding that shouldn't have existed in pre-Columbian South America. The layout follows precise geometric patterns. The spacing between blocks, the angles of the joints, the overall proportions, everything follows mathematical relationships that require advanced knowledge of geometry and engineering principles. Some researchers have found that certain measurements at Puma Punku correspond to astronomical alignments. This suggests that the builders weren't just skilled engineers, they were also sophisticated astronomers who could incorporate celestial observations into their construction plans. And here's something that really blows my mind. Many of the joint systems at Puma Punku use principles that weren't, officially, discovered by Western engineering until much later. We're talking about joint designs that distribute weight and stress in ways that modern engineers recognize as highly advanced. For example, some of the connections use what engineers call mechanical advantage, joint systems that actually become stronger under load. When weight is applied to these joints, they lock together more tightly rather than coming apart. This is seriously advanced engineering that requires deep understanding of physics and material science. The precision extends beyond just the cuts and joints. The blocks are positioned with accuracy that suggests the use of sophisticated measuring and positioning systems. We're talking about blocks that are aligned to within fractions of degrees, positioned with tolerances that would be impressive even by today's standards. All of this points to one inescapable conclusion. Whoever built Puma Punku had engineering knowledge and capabilities that far exceeded what we're told was possible for their time period. They weren't just skilled craftsmen, they were sophisticated engineers working with advanced technical knowledge. The evidence suggests planning and execution capabilities that rival modern construction projects. Yet we're supposed to believe this was accomplished by people using primitive tools and basic techniques. Does any of this make sense to you? Can you think of any way these engineering challenges could be solved with primitive technology? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this engineering mystery is blowing your mind as much as it's blowing ours, smash that like button and let's keep exploring these impossible achievements together. Alright, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. We've talked about impossible cuts and mind-bending engineering, But now we need to ask the million-dollar question. What tools could possibly create work this precise? This is where the official story starts to fall apart completely. According to mainstream archaeology, the people who built Puma Punku had access to copper tools, stone hammers, and abrasive sands. That's it. No iron, no steel, no advanced machinery. Just soft copper and elbow grease. But when you actually look at what these supposed primitive tools can do, the story doesn't add up. Let's start with copper. Copper is a soft metal. Softer than many stones. On the hardness scale that geologists use, copper rates about 3 out of 10, while andesite and granite, the stones used at Puma Punku, rate around 6 to 7. That means the stone is actually harder than the tool that's supposed to cut it. It's like trying to cut a steel pipe with a plastic knife. Physics just doesn't work that way. I've watched modern craftsmen try to cut granite with copper tools. What happens? The copper gets worn down and deformed while barely scratching the stone. You might eventually manage to chip away pieces, but you'll never get the clean, precise cuts we see at Puma Punku. But let's say, for argument's sake, that somehow copper tools could cut these stones. Even if that were possible, copper tools would leave very distinctive marks. When you cut stone with soft metal, you get rough, irregular surfaces with visible tool marks. The copper leaves traces, creates striations, and produces a characteristic texture. Yet when researchers examine the cuts at Puma Punku under microscopes, they don't find these expected marks. Instead, they find surfaces so smooth and clean that they look like they were cut with modern diamond-tip tools or high-powered lasers. Let me give you a specific example. There are drill holes at Puma Punku that go straight through solid andesite blocks. These holes are perfectly circular, with smooth walls and precise diameters. Modern engineers who've studied these holes say they show characteristics typical of high-speed rotary drilling with diamond or carbide bits. But here's the problem. High-speed drilling requires not just hard cutting surfaces, but also consistent rotation speed and steady pressure. How do you maintain consistent rotation and pressure when drilling through several feet of solid granite using primitive tools? How do you keep the hole perfectly straight and circular? Some researchers have suggested that maybe they used some kind of abrasive technique, like using sand and water to slowly grind away the stone. But abrasive cutting leaves very specific marks. The surface shows tiny scratches in the direction of the abrasive motion. It's like sandpaper marks, but on a microscopic level. When scientists examine the Puma Punku cuts under high magnification, they don't find these abrasive marks either. Instead, they find evidence of what looks like clean fracturing, as if the stone was cut so quickly and precisely that the crystalline structure didn't have time to show stress patterns. And then there's the issue of scale. Even if you could somehow make precise cuts with primitive tools, it would take forever. We're talking about thousands of cuts across hundreds of massive blocks. If each cut took weeks or months to complete with primitive tools, the entire project would have taken centuries. But geological and archaeological evidence suggests Puma Punku was built relatively quickly, over a period of decades rather than centuries. This points to cutting techniques that were not just precise but also efficient. Some of the most puzzling evidence comes from something called scoop marks, found on various blocks. These are smooth, curved indentations that look like someone scooped out stone the way you'd scoop out ice cream. The marks are perfectly smooth with no tool marks or stress fractures. Modern stone carvers have tried to replicate these scoop marks using various techniques. Even with diamond-tipped tools and high-speed rotary cutters, they can't match the smoothness and precision of the original marks. The best modern attempts still show visible tool marks and slight irregularities. There's also evidence of what appears to be thermal cutting, areas where the stone looks like it was melted or softened rather than chipped away. Some blocks have edges that appear fused or vitrified, as if exposed to extremely high temperatures. But what heat source could ancient builders have used that was hot enough to soften granite? Here's another mystery. Some cuts at Puma Punku show evidence of being made from the inside out. Picture drilling a hole, but instead of starting from the surface and working inward, it looks like the cutting started from the center of the stone and worked outward in all directions simultaneously. How is that even possible with any known cutting technique? The tool marks, or rather, the complete lack of expected tool marks, tell a story that doesn't match any known ancient technology. These stones show evidence of cutting techniques that we can barely replicate today, even with our most advanced tools. Modern laser cutting can produce similar precision, but lasers powerful enough to cut through stone weren't invented until the 1960s. Plasma cutting might work too, But that requires temperatures of over 20,000 degrees Celsius and wasn't developed until the 20th century. So we're left with a mind-bending mystery. The evidence suggests the use of cutting technology that was either far more advanced than anything we know from that time period, or completely different from anything we understand today. What's your take on this tool mystery? Can you think of any ancient technology that could produce these results? Or do you think we're missing something about what was really available to ancient builders? Let us know in the comments what you think about these impossible cuts. Now we come to the big question. The one that keeps researchers awake at night and makes comfortable assumptions crumble like ancient stone. If everything we've discussed is true, and the evidence strongly suggests it is, then what does this mean for our understanding of history? We're not just talking about impressive ancient architecture here. We're talking about evidence that fundamentally challenges the story we've been told about human technological development. The standard narrative goes like this. Humans started with simple stone tools, gradually developed metalworking, and slowly progressed through bronze, iron, and eventually to modern technology. It's a neat, linear progression where each advancement builds on the previous ones. But Puma Punku throws a massive wrench into this neat timeline. Here we have evidence of technological capabilities that don't fit anywhere in the accepted progression. It's like finding a smartphone in a medieval castle. It just doesn't belong according to our understanding of how technology develops. Let's think about what the evidence at Puma Punku actually implies. We're looking at precision cutting that rivals modern manufacturing, engineering knowledge that matches contemporary standards, and construction techniques that we struggle to replicate today. This suggests one of several possibilities, all of which are pretty mind-blowing. Possibility number 1. The people who built Puma Punku had access to advanced technology that we don't know about. Maybe they developed cutting techniques that we haven't rediscovered yet. Maybe they had tools and methods that were lost when their civilization disappeared. This isn't as far-fetched as it might sound. We know that ancient civilizations sometimes achieved technical capabilities that were later lost. Greek fire, Damascus steel, Roman concrete. There are examples throughout history of techniques that disappeared and took centuries to rediscover. But the precision at Puma Punku goes way beyond anything else we've seen from the ancient world. We're talking about capabilities that seem to require not just different techniques, but fundamentally different approaches to working with stone. Possibility number 2. Our dating of Puma Punku is wrong. Maybe these structures are much older than we think, built by a civilization that was far more advanced than we've realized. Maybe there was a lost civilization that achieved high technology and then disappeared, leaving only these mysterious stone structures as evidence of their capabilities. This idea challenges everything we think we know about human history. It suggests that technological development wasn't the steady upward climb we imagine, but more like a roller coaster with peaks and valleys. Advanced civilizations that rose and fell, leaving behind puzzling evidence of their achievements. Some researchers point to other mysterious sites around the world that show similar precision and advanced techniques. Sacsayhuaman in Peru, Baalbek in Lebanon, the granite boxes in Egypt. There's a pattern of impossible precision in ancient stonework that spans different continents and supposedly different time periods. Could these all be evidence of the same lost technology? Could there have been a global civilization with advanced capabilities that we're only now beginning to recognize? Possibility number 3, and this is where things get really speculative. Maybe the builders had help. Maybe they had access to knowledge or technology from a source we haven't considered. This doesn't necessarily mean aliens. It could mean contact with other human civilizations that were more advanced, or technological knowledge that was passed down from an earlier advanced period. But here's what really gets me about Puma Punku. It's not just the individual mysteries, it's how they all fit together. The precision cuts, the advanced engineering, the impossible tool marks, the perfect joints, each piece of evidence supports the others. It's not just one anomaly that we can explain away, it's a whole system of anomalies that point to the same conclusion. And that conclusion is uncomfortable for mainstream archaeology. It suggests that our understanding of ancient capabilities is seriously incomplete. It means that somewhere in our past, there were people who could achieve things that we can barely match today. This has huge implications for how we think about human potential and technological development. If ancient people could achieve such precision and sophistication, what does that say about the supposed progression from primitive to advanced? What other capabilities might we be overlooking or misunderstanding? The evidence at Puma Punku also raises questions about preservation and rediscovery. If advanced techniques existed in the past, why did they disappear? What would it take for an entire technological tradition to be lost? And what else might be waiting to be rediscovered? There's also the question of replication. Despite all our modern technology, we still can't easily recreate what we see at Puma Punku. This suggests that the builders had not just advanced tools, but advanced knowledge, understanding of techniques and principles that we haven't fully grasped yet. Maybe the real lesson of Puma Punku isn't about ancient aliens or lost civilizations. Maybe it's about human ingenuity and capability. Maybe it's telling us that our ancestors were far more sophisticated and capable than we give them credit for. But that raises its own questions. If humans were capable of such precision and sophistication in the past, why did we seemingly lose these capabilities? Why did technological development appear to start over from scratch? The implications go beyond just archaeology and history. They touch on questions about human potential, about the nature of technological development, about what we might be capable of if we fully understood and applied the principles that the builders of Puma Punku seem to master. One thing is certain. Puma Punku forces us to question our assumptions. It challenges the comfortable narrative of steady technological progress, and suggests that human history might be far more complex and interesting than we've imagined. What do you think these implications mean for our understanding of history? Do you think we've underestimated ancient human capabilities? Or do you think there's something else going on? Share your thoughts in the comments. This is exactly the kind of discussion that helps us all think more deeply about these mysteries. So here we are, at the end of our journey through one of archaeology's most mind-bending mysteries. We've examined cuts so precise they defy explanation, engineering so sophisticated it challenges our assumptions, and tool marks that don't match any known ancient technology. The evidence at Puma Punku doesn't just suggest impressive craftsmanship. It points to capabilities that we struggle to explain with our current understanding of ancient technology and human development. Whether you think this points to lost advanced civilizations, unknown ancient technologies, or something else entirely, one thing is clear. Puma Punku challenges us to think differently about our past and about human potential. The precision cuts, the impossible engineering, the mysterious tool marks, they're all carved in stone, waiting for us to figure out their secrets. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all. There's still so much we don't know, so many mysteries waiting to be solved. If this deep dive into Puma Punku has got you thinking, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos on other archaeological mysteries that challenge conventional thinking. We've got episodes coming up on the impossible polygonal walls of Sacsayhuaman, the mysterious granite boxes of Egypt, and the precision stonework at Ollantaytambo. And here's where I need your help. Which ancient mystery should we tackle next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. Are you curious about the massive stones at Baalbek? Want to know more about the precision drilling at ancient sites around the world? Or maybe you've got a different archaeological puzzle that keeps you up at night. Your engagement really does shape what we create next. Every like, comment, and share helps us bring you more content that dives deep into the mysteries that mainstream archaeology doesn't want to talk about. If you enjoyed this video, you'll definitely want to check out our playlist on impossible ancient technology. There's a link in the description that will take you down a rabbit hole of precision stonework, advanced engineering, and archaeological anomalies that will change how you think about the past. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the impossible. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, the most interesting discoveries happen when we're willing to challenge what we think we know. Until next time, stay curious.